hit record on the video. And then I use a separate platform for audio only as well. Just it's like a backup thing for me.
Absolutely.
All right. So if you are ready in three, two, one. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sandy K Nutrition, Health and Lifestyle Queen. Today with me, I have Chef Whitney Aronoff. And Chef Whitney is a personal chef who crafts custom meal plans for clients. And she guides them towards a healthier life. She's also the founder of High Vibration Foods. She attended culinary school of the Natural Gourmet Institute in New York City. By studying Eastern and Western healing philosophies with food, she uncovered the root causes of her suffering. And Whitney healed herself of an autoimmune disease and chronic digestive issues with food. Through her blog, Starseed Kitchen, she shares seasonal high vibration recipes and her line of organic spice blends, High Vibration Foods, that she launched in 2020. And it's now available at Irwan. Is that how you pronounce it? Irwan Market?
Yeah.
Oh, I did it right. Look at that. Whitney believes that the healthiest meal one can eat is one prepared at home. We are just so aligned in that, Whitney. And Chef Whitney's goal is to share her culinary knowledge to empower people to cook nourishing meals in their own kitchens. And today, we're going to be talking about high vibrational living, what this means, where to begin. And as we all know, it always begins with what you take into your body, your mind, your soul, and all of these things. So, with that, welcome, Whitney. Thank you for coming.
My pleasure. I love connecting with you. So this is great. Thanks for having me here.
So let's start by your story. I
Yeah.
always believe that, a lot of us who are in this world have a hero's journey. So let's begin with your story.
Yeah, we have to have our own personal great awakening. And mine started as a teenager. And every night right before I went to bed, I would get a stomach ache in the same spot. And it was very bizarre. I couldn't figure out if it was something that I was eating, if I was allergic to something, what was going on. But it was the same exact spot on my stomach would give me pain every night when I got in bed. And I went to lots of different, more general practitioners at the time. And none of them would ask me what I was eating. They would just tell me, oh, you just need to eat more fiber, eat more broccoli. And steamed broccoli florets have always been one of my favorite vegetables. So I knew I was dealing with people that couldn't help me. And so I just continued the search, I think, as most men and women do. And just throughout your life in your 20s and your 30s and after, you are just constantly trying different doctors and spending thousands of dollars trying to get to the root cause of your health issues. We know how we're feeling in our body, and we try to communicate that to whoever the practitioner is that we're going to. And in most cases, they don't do tests. They just want to hear your symptoms, and then they provide guidance from there. And they don't often dig deeper and ask about your lifestyle and what you're taking in food wise, what you're taking in physically, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. And so ultimately, I was just frustrated because I was never getting to the root cause of my stomach pain. And as a woman, I wasn't getting to the root cause of why sometimes I gain weight and why sometimes I'd be at a healthy weight. And the fluctuation was just such a mind game and such a frustration just in being able to show up as my highest self, whether it was for a job or for my social life or for relationships. I just wanted some consistency. So I decided, you know what? I'm in this body. I know how I feel. I think I'm going to go to culinary school. I think I'm going to leave this corporate life as an HR manager and recruiter. I want to go and learn to nourish myself, because if I can learn to make traditional foods from scratch in season, have just as many classes with registered dietitians as with chefs teaching me these old world ways, I can learn to deeply nourish and balance my body, and I can heal myself. I just decided to take it into my own hands in my early 30s. But through that process of eating real whole foods, I found that I was able to better listen to myself. My intuition turned up a notch, but my sensitivity also turned up a notch. And I was just better able to hear myself and what my body needed. And then that's when I learned a lot of these physical pains in my body were just emotions that were trapped, were a
Mhm.
variety of spiritual, experiences that I just needed to move through and let go of. And so the food helped me get there so then I could let go of the other stuff. So I really feel like when we all start to make edits in our diet, and I like to just approach it as like edits, you don't need to overhaul things overnight, but you just slowly upgrade what you're consuming to be cleaner, higher quality, less ingredients, smarter options, more in season. You you get just can you can hear yourself better and you can feel yourself better, so you can figure out the other stuff that's in the way that's causing you not to feel amazing every day.
Wow. Okay. You said a lot there. You talked about trapped emotions. So I think food is obviously a huge part of it.
Mhm.
And when you start to clean things up, you're able to really tap into a higher vibration overall. Like,
Yeah.
here's something that you're going to find really interesting, Whitney. After when I was like younger, and you talk about stomach aches. When I was younger, and even into my 30s, I couldn't eat eggs.
Hmm.
And as we know, eggs are nature's multivitamin, right? And it bothered me. And it wasn't until I actually changed what I ate, changed everything in my home, and like you said, it was like a slow but steady change in diet, change in, even the things that I clean my house with.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
cleaned everything up. I actually have had people message me and they're like, "Where do I start? It's so overwhelming." I'm like, "Just do it slowly.
Mhm.
Finish what you've got, and then make sure the next time you buy a bottle of this, that it's just a more natural option." And you know what? I eat eggs like at least probably 3 times a week now, Whitney, and I was tested. I had an allergy to eggs. So it's pretty amazing when you start to make these slow, intentional changes, how your
Yeah.
body starts to respond.
Yeah, absolutely. And I truly believe you can heal yourself from like any food allergy or sensitivity, like in time. But we always need to be open to retesting what we're eating, being that it's its highest quality and source, because you never know when it might suddenly start to resonate for you again, that it might be okay to bring back into your diet. And I mean, I think that's like one of the things that we really have to start teaching the younger generations is like your body is not stagnant. Like your diet, what you're doing right now isn't going to be it forever. It's always going to change and evolve. And if you can get really flexible with how your diet and your body is going to always change, I think it's going to allow the next generations to be more flexible with everything that comes at them in life. And I
Mhm.
think maybe I feel like with my generation, like I grew up in the 80s and 90s, we try to be really regimented and stay within our lane or our box. And that's just not the way anything moves in life.
Yeah, see, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, so a decade earlier. So I grew up where it was free living. It was like, you just go and do whatever it is. And while, in certain instances it served me, and a lot it didn't, but it anyway, it helped me to be more flexible.
Yeah.
So let's get into, what does high vibration mean? What does that mean for people who are like, this
Yeah.
sounds really woo, it sounds really out there. I don't get it.
Yeah, so everything has a vibration. So you are vibrating at a certain frequency. I'm vibrating at a certain frequency. So is everything in our room. So are the foods that we choose. Everything has a feeling. So if we were to go to a grocery store at the farmer's market, you and I would touch a few different apples before we figured out which apple we wanted to buy and eat or take home with us. And you would probably end up choosing different ones than I do because you're feeling something different. Now, most people will probably think, well, when I choose my apples, I'm looking for no bruises and, I'm looking for something hard. Everyone has an idea of visually what they're looking for, but there's a physical resonance. And we all know when we try to send somebody else to do the grocery shopping for us, they don't necessarily choose the pieces that we would have chosen for ourselves. We'll notice that something's off in the cilantro that they purchased or the cabbage that they purchased because there's senses in our fingers, in our body, in our frequency that's matching up with the frequency and other things that we need. So everything is a frequency. So we want to find things that match us or are above us. We all know that if we surround ourselves with people that are participating in life in a higher level, they are happy and really feel fulfilled in their careers, in their personal life, with where they're living, we will rise to the occasion. And when we spend time with people who are going through a depressed time in their lives, that are sad, that are down, that are woe is me, we will sink to their level. And so I can give you tons of examples in this way. And so it's helping us better understand that that is a real thing. It's not woo-woo. It's science. We've all experienced it. So how do we trust our feelings and then make choices to continue moving us forward and up? And I think the food that we choose creates our foundation so we can then just keep moving up. Why choose foods that are going to bring you down? You want them to hold your frequency or raise you up.
Okay. So people get confused because, as you know, there's a lot to be said about our food sources, and we get a lot of information thrown at us.
Yeah.
Oh, everybody's got to be vegan now. Oh, well, meat is bad.
Yes.
Oh, well, and there's all these different pieces of advice as it relates to food.
Yeah.
And or here's another one that you hear with midlife women, especially, carbs are bad.
Mm-hmm.
I personally follow this whole belief system that if I think that that plate of potatoes is going to be harmful for me, then it probably will, right?
Yeah, because that's
So,
the mindset you've just set up,
yeah.
for when you consume the potato. But if you change your mindset, just like the shaming with desserts, if you
Mm,
change your mindset and choose a more quality product, the
yeah.
best cookie that you can get, you're going to digest it a lot differently if you approach it from your mind.
Yeah, and what's really interesting, and because I read a lot about energy. I am so aligned with this whole, like, everything is energy. Have you seen that device? There's a device that you can actually put it onto a plant, and
I know
then
how to get one.
did you know what I'm talking about?
I
And
know exactly what you're talking about.
you
Yeah,
can
you can
hear the
hear.
plant.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. They do that with mushrooms, they do it with fruit, with plants, and you can hear their song because everyone has a song. We all know when you walk into a room and there's somebody that you like, you just want to be around them or you just want to meet them. Or God, like every time you see them, you feel so good. Like we all know what it's like to like give our mom or our grandma or our dad a hug. And there is just that feeling that you get when you connect with their chest that is just so delicious.
Yeah.
But that exists in everything. There's a reason why you are drawn to a certain flower and I am drawn to a certain flower. It is matching something within us, or it is helping where we are go the next level higher. And so food's the same way. And I don't like to do a good or bad with food, but I think it helps people when understanding the vibration of food, like a good, better, best. So
Oh, I
like, oh,
love that. Oh my God, I can't believe you said that. We're so aligned, Whitney. That's
I know. I told you, I think you're my
cool.
last big sister.
It's so cool.
Well, we can think that, like, I think for high vibration foods, it's all whole, real foods. So a lot of people think high vibration foods is a vegan diet. It's vegetables, it's fruit, it's grains, it's seeds, it's nuts. That's it. But it's animal protein, it's fish, it's eggs, it's dairy, it's cheese, it is, you know, all different types of animals and organ meats. I think there's so much more there that is a high vibration food, and it's all nourishing the body, bringing us up or bringing us down, grounding us in a purposeful way. But then it's the good, better, best. So you know, a factory farm egg isn't going to make a lot of people feel good, especially when we know that there are added hormones in there and those chickens are sick and they've been eating soy and corn and GMO grains.
Or their
And
beaks are cut off
yeah,
so
that
they
I mean,
don't peck at each other. I've heard that one too.
and what they've been shot up with is now in the eggs. And then what's the egg sprayed with? That's like, we don't you can't just say an egg is a high vibration food. 100% pasture raised egg that was from a a healthy chicken that traveled around and ate seeds and worms and whatever's naturally occurring in the regenerative farm, that's going to be nourishing. So it's helping people just re-identify what real whole food is and understanding that it carries a frequency and to choose the best with where you are. So not to beat yourself up if your only options are grocery stores and you can't access a farmer's market and you can't access what someone's in their yard. You do the best with where you are and where you can and what you can do financially. And I find if you start doing that, your psychic abilities, your intuition, it's all going to up level. And then you'll suddenly see that there are actually other places that you can choose your ingredients from that are better and
Mm.
that it does work with your budget and you just keep upgrading. And it's kind of fun. It's kind of play. Like we need to bring back some fun and play with grocery shopping, with making our meals, with choosing our ingredients. Like I think everyone can remember like the first time they went to a farmer's market and it was fun. So there's a way to make food and grocery shopping and the nourishment of oneself every day fun again.
Yeah, I make it a habit in where I am. We only have a farmer's market in my particular area for I think it starts in May and it ends end of October. And I try and go every single weekend. And I have conversations with the farmers. And it's kind of like what you're saying, Whitney. A lot of them do not go and get organic certification because it's extremely expensive to do so. So they don't do it. But I have conversations about how do they grow these vegetables. And I always challenge so it's always an argument about, oh, you must cut out animal products because that's not a high vibration. But then I question, well, do you believe that eating crop from GMO seed that is heavily sprayed using mass factory farm equipment, like massive,
Mhm.
do you think that's high vibrational living? So I always challenge individuals who are very constrained in their thought process
Yeah,
about
as a
what is healthy.
Yeah, as a personal chef, I have to manage where everybody is on their journey and their belief system with food. And I have a lot of clients that do want me to buy fake meat.
Mm,
And it's very tough to convince people who think that is going to serve them and is better for the planet than choosing real meat or just putting more vegetables on the plate.
mm,
And everyone needs to start realizing all the energy that goes into creating processed food. And fake meat is a processed food. If it's technically supposed to be coming from vegetables and grains and the ground. Um, it has to be done in large, massive amounts and go to a factory and be packaged in plastic in order to get to you. It really makes no sense. Um, but that is the disconnect between people understanding how the food they gets to their plate. And then I think that's the disconnect with people understanding why their food is so expensive. And that's part of why I became a chef. I just wanted to know how to better order at a restaurant. Like I just wanted to know how to nourish myself. I just wanted to know how this whole food system worked because I just felt like if I did, then I can make better choices for myself. And so I understand why my broccoli or broccolini is a particular price at the grocery store now because I understand it went through 4 or 5 different companies before it even got to Whole Foods, before it even got to the health food store. It went from the farm to a co-packer to sold to the grocery store, then to the grocery store, and all the hands that had to touch it and load it and unload it. And it was probably picked 5, 6, 7, 8 days ago. So the nutrient density has dropped along the way. So another way that people can better understand the vibration of food, if they're not quite sure what we're talking about and if it's real, try to get food that is freshly picked. So in the spring and the summer and the fall, see if there's a farm around you where you can go and pick apples, pick strawberries, pick fruit, harvest vegetables, and eat it right away. And see how that feels. You can see how much energy you get when you pick something and eat it. And then go to the grocery store and buy food that's in plastic. Go to a grocery store where the zucchini is wrapped in plastic, the cucumber is wrapped in plastic. You don't even know how long ago this food was picked, clearly over a week ago. And you will notice you need to eat more of it to feel full. It is less nutrient dense because it was picked so much longer ago that you are finding that you have to build a bigger plate of food to feel satisfied and nourished versus when it's freshly picked, you need less on your plate because it's so much more nutrient dense, but it's so much more energetically dense.
Ooh, I love that. Energetically dense. I love that. And it makes a lot of sense. So I'm a big energy girl overall in terms of like everything. You're going to laugh maybe at this, Whitney. Maybe you won't. So my daughter's moving into a home with a bunch of roommates at university. And I went over there and I was helping her clean things up. Well, I brought some stuff. I opened the windows. I cleansed the space. I
Mhm.
want her to have a very good year. And I believe that, you know, energy is everything, like we talked about at the beginning. So if your hands are on, like if there's a million hands that are touching all this food,
I know.
okay, can you cleanse it when you cook it? I don't know. But like, I think there's something inherent about, like you said, picking the food. Not that we can all do this,
Mhm.
but when you pick your own food or you go and you have a conversation with the farmer who grew it themselves and you're talking to them and it's not wrapped in plastic, I think that that in and of itself is going to be a high vibration food, whether they use some pesticide at the beginning of the growth. So that happens a lot here where I am in Ontario. I'm just outside of Toronto. A lot of the berries have
Mhm.
a little bit of fungicide because I talked to them at the beginning, and it's not great. But I also understand the challenges of these farmers,
Mhm.
and I also see where it's coming from, and I have these conversations with them, and I'm like, this to me is still in season. It's still a very high vibration food. I personally eat in seasons when it comes to most of the vegetables, although because Toronto, I mean, I wouldn't eat any vegetables if that were the case in the winter, right? Like, there's nothing that grows here in the winter, but I think about my parents and my grandparents. So they grew all their own food. They had their own chickens. The chickens laid the eggs. I watched some people are like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you saw that." But as a little girl, I saw my grandmother kill a chicken, and then we ate it that day
Oh,
or
you're
that
so
night.
lucky. Yeah.
So, and this was very old school, Whitney, like, the head, like, it was
Yeah.
really old school. And some people think, "Oh god, that's cruel." I'm like, "Well, no, it's actually nature. It's
Yeah.
nature." And
Everybody,
it
I mean, everybody else is doing it out there, meaning like that's how the animals are getting by.
yeah, how do you think animals survive?
I
We are
mean,
animals.
I think it's actually amazing that we as humans have developed a practice of praying over our food. So it
Mhm.
doesn't matter what religion you choose or not. Every soul, every human soul on this planet at some point in their life is called to put their hands around the plate and give a blessing.
Mm.
It's like innately in every human soul. It feels so good to send gratitude to the plate, gratitude to the people that you're getting to gather with. You know, does every animal bless the animal they're about to kill? I mean, that's amazing if they're able to do it in that split second. Like, I think they're kind of just focused on like the hunt and kill because you have to move so quickly. Like, humans are very have the ability to be very deliberate in their choices. And we practice so much ceremony and sacredness, especially when it comes to food. And I believe it's because we know that there's something there when we do that. And I think it doesn't matter what texts we look at from around the world in any part in history, there is something to be said about blessing food, blessing space, setting the intention before we cook a meal. And when it comes to holiday dinners, as a chef, I always set the intention. I always set the intention with my team, with the turkey, whatever the big meal
Oh.
is. I talk to the food. I tell it how I want it to perform. I tell it how I want it to make everybody feel. And that's really important is I tell the food how I want the other people on the other side to feel. And it comes to fruition every time. But I suggest if you're nervous about cooking a dinner, about doing a dinner party, when you're making dinner for someone you love and you just are a little bit nervous, just talk to the food and tell it how you need it to perform, how you want it to come out. And it allows you to move through that nervousness and you get a better outcome on the end. And if you can do this with food, I think you can apply it to anything in life.
I love that you said that because I've heard many people, "Oh, I don't have the patience to cook," or "I'm an awful cook," or "I don't have the time to cook," or whatever your reason is, that's gonna come across in your food.
Yeah.
And when I cook, more often than not, I turn on the music. I really put that energy into my dish
Yeah.
and it comes across. So when you take the time and you actually provide a meal and cook the meal from scratch with good ingredients and healthy ingredients, it comes off that way. And people always
Mhm.
love my food. Like I always consider myself a home chef. So, like, a good example, you'll probably really appreciate this. I was making salmon. My husband hates salmon, by the way. Hates it, hates it. There's nothing I could do, Whitney. I've tried many different ways. So one of the things I like to bake it in the oven.
Yeah, me too.
I
That's my favorite one.
Yeah, I don't add maple syrup. I don't add anything on it. I
Yeah.
add just spices, a little
Mhm.
bit of avocado oil and high heat. And then I created what I called my bouquet of herbs. And I know this is where we're going to get into herbs
Yeah.
because I'm going to have some questions about that. So I don't have a lot of space to grow all of my vegetables, but I have a small area for my herb garden. So I created my bouquet of herbs. I washed them, I cleaned them, I chopped them up. I chopped up garlic. I added in a nice quality olive oil. And then once the salmon is done, I drizzle that on top of the salmon. My kids love it. And it's just such an amazing way to do salmon without adding all the sweeteners.
Yeah.
My husband still hates any salmon, but he also hates broccoli and zucchini. So, I mean, I can't change him at this point. But I do want to talk about how herbs can really enhance the vibration and the nutrients in
Mm.
your meal, because I try and throw in, basil, parsley. What else did I threw in some sage. I threw in some, what else did I have? Basil, parsley, sage, a bunch of stuff. I have chives. So talk to us about herbs.
So it's so interesting because my style of cooking, and if people visit my Instagram page or my website, Starseed Kitchen, I go really heavy with herbs. When it comes to fresh herbs, like more is more. It's not like old school restaurants where you get a sprig of parsley on the plate. I hit everything really hard. I like the flavor profile. And when I imagine fresh herbs, I just imagine them just moving through my body and kind of clearing out all the junk. I just think it's so I feel like they're pipe cleaners. But it's flavor, it's natural, beautiful, fresh flavor because most of those herbs are fresher sprouts, right? They haven't been up and out of the ground for that long. They are maybe growing for 2 or 3 weeks and we cut them and use them. So I love fresh herbs for flavor. And I think that's where people need to kind of connect the dots where our dried herbs and spices were the fresh ingredient. So a lot of people like to not spend money on dried herbs and spices, what goes in their pantry. They think they can cut corners there, but that's the dried version of the fresh version. So whatever was on the fresh version, whatever the fresh version was grown with, is now concentrated in the dried version. So that's why it's really important that we look for organic, non-GMO, non-irradiated herbs and spices because it's a concentrated form now of the real thing. And that's how we humans have been able to eat throughout the year, even in cold weather climates, is because we take those ingredients, we dry them, we ground them, and then we're able to use the concentrated version in the winter time, right? So you pull the turmeric out of the ground, you peel it, you dry it, you ground it, and we have our turmeric spice, which is so great in our curries, so great just add to rice. Anytime you need something anti-inflammatory, we have our curry powder, our turmeric powder. But it's really important that it's organic, non-GMO, that it hasn't been altered, that it hasn't been irradiated, which means put in a box and hit with a microwave frequency to potentially kill any bugs that might be on it. But now it's sending a frequency into your food. So I really invite people to like reevaluate that portion of their pantry or their cupboards because it's just as important as the fresh ingredients you're buying.
I actually always buy organic herbs. Now, if they're organic, can they still be irradiated?
So they say that if they are organic, that they weren't irradiated when they came into whatever country you live in. I still look for those companies that say non-irradiated, but technically, and when I was taught in culinary school, is if the product is organic, it doesn't get irradiated. So meaning if your bananas come in from South America and they are organic, they are not sprayed to ripen faster and they are not irradiated. But the non-organic bananas are sprayed with or gassed so they ripen faster and then they are irradiated.
Hey, I don't know if you know anything about this, but so many people have sent me clips about this. What is this appeal or appeal or what is that you see in the grocery stores now?
Yeah, so I feel really lucky. I haven't seen it yet. It might just be where I'm shopping or where I'm located. But Appeal is a wax, a chemical wax that's going to be or has already been started in America and I think other countries. They're putting it on fruits and vegetables, quote unquote, so they don't spoil faster. They don't spoil as fast. So the stuff is going to be putting on our apples, on our oranges, on our mangoes, on our softer fruits and vegetables, and on our cucumbers. And it's supposed to keep the fresh fruits and vegetables shelf stable longer, so they don't go bad in transport, and they don't go bad as fast while they're sitting at the grocery store. Well, we all know we don't want fresh food that's old, but we don't want chemicals on or in our food. And these are just new chemicals that haven't been tested and they aren't safe for human consumption. But it's going to be out there. Now, some grocery stores are speaking up and saying, that they will never carry anything that has the appeal spray or the appeal sticker on it. So there's a sticker that has to be put on the product that shows that it was sprayed with this type of wax or sealant. I don't trust that either. Stickers fall off. But we all know that, weird things happen through the transport of our food. So the more that you can buy food that goes through less hands, now's a better time than ever.
Yeah. Yeah. I think personally, I don't know what you think of this, but personally, I think it's the best place to start is to shop with your farmer if you can.
Yeah,
Like, just to start. And then, you can ask them questions and have conversations with them, because the majority of the farmers that go to these farmers markets, they have a lot of pride in what they do.
I know they work so hard.
Yeah. And they will be honest. I mean, I haven't heard, you know, well, I can't say that for sure, but I think for the most part, you're going to hopefully have farmers that are honest. I mean, I have seen farmers go to Foodland Ontario and buy stuff and then put it on their tables to sell, because I'm like, "Hmm, how is that there? Like, this is not in season right
I've
now."
had vendors like that too. There was a particular vendor that was at our farmer's market for many years, and he'd always have a variety of sweet potatoes when I there was no way for him to have that variety. Um,
And it's hard
and
to
at that time
preserve.
of year. Yeah, at that time of year, even if he had a cellar,
Yeah.
nothing was stacking up. And so ultimately that vendor was removed from the farmer's market. But if it doesn't feel right, it's not right. Like if you're walking up and the table doesn't feel right, the food, something seems off about the food, you aren't connecting with the person that's checking you out, then that's not the right table for you. It's not the right stand for you. That's okay. There'll be
Mhm.
somebody else for these people. Just move on and find the vendors that are right for you. So when I go to the farmers market, I'm in and out really fast. I know the exact spots I go to, and I only get what they are selling. And if something doesn't resonate with me that I'm not digging the fruit, then I leave without fruit.
Mhm.
I don't force it. I really lean into how I feel. Um, and that is a daily practice. It's not easy to trust how you feel versus what your brain's telling you. And, I don't hit the mark all the time, but overall, I go with how I feel.
I like it. So here's something interesting. I
Mhm.
remember, and this is great for all of you who have younger kids. I remember when my kids were younger, Whitney, I'd be like, "Okay, strawberries. Strawberries are healthy. I got to get strawberries into my kids." And
Yeah.
I would go to the grocery store, and here I am in Toronto, and I'd go in February to the grocery store and I'd buy strawberries that were from California, shipped from there. They might be organic, but then I go to cut into them and they're hard and they have this core, and just so that I get that into my kids. And what I have stopped doing is exactly that. So I build up my nutrient stores for a lot of these antioxidant berries when it's in season here. So one of the things I was taught, okay, mind you, my mom tells me stories of how they used to preserve apples on the farm. They would bury them in the ground and then they would put hay on top, and then cover them, and that would preserve their apples. It was like this, you know, now farmers have these cellars with these gases and everything to preserve their apples. That's how my mom did it on the farm. So, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
But now I'm like, okay, I'm just going to eat and get my fill when they're in season now. And then if I travel somewhere and it's in season there, great, I'll eat it there. Otherwise, I'm not going to worry about making sure I get those blueberries in me just because. Just because. What do you think?
I do the same thing. And I think it's easy for you and I to talk about this and do this and practice this because we've tasted what it tastes like when it's in season and it's local.
And
And
when it's not.
yeah, when you've had an amazing apple and a variety you've never seen anyplace else, and there's that crispness and that flavor and that satiation, you cannot go back to an apple in the middle of summer that's mealy and soft. Like once you've had peak season, you can't go back to subpar. And start applying that to all the food in your life. Like when you've had it peak season, let's like proteins have a season. You know, you can get turkeys in the fall and winter because that's when they're being harvested because they hatch in spring and they're growing late spring, all summer, and through the early fall. And then they start being put down for holiday dinners. Like that's their life cycle. So
Yeah.
there's a season for proteins, there's a season for fruits and vegetables. And we're not supposed to eat certain foods year round. Our bodies know that, right? So like melons are so good for hydration in the summer. So good for kind of grounding us and filling us with water and hydration. But we're not meant to have the melon year round. You know, stone fruit is so great for us in the summer. Anything that's growing right by the sun, helping us like max out on our vitamin D. So we eat the fruit that's growing closest to the sun and we're spending time in the sun and we just absorb vitamin D in all these different ways. So then in the wintertime, our body has a depth of vitamin D to pull from.
Mm.
So there's a reason for all of it. We get to rediscover why nature set it up this way, and start to lean into it. Doesn't, I mean, I still think like when you have a craving for strawberries, you know, you do the best you can to fill the craving. But overall, you can start to teach your body and your mind to enjoy it when it's best available.
Yeah, I like that. I don't think I'm like you. I don't consider it a hard, fast rule, but some people who live off the land, it is a hard, fast rule. They have no other options. And I know this because like I said, I come from farming parents. So I've heard the stories. I've heard the stories of them being hungry because in the winter, it was really, really hard to even feed. My father came 9 children. So how do you feed a family of 9 on a farm? 4, right? So it's interesting when I hear all the stories and it gives me an appreciation for what it means um, to eat with seasons, to eat live, well, not necessarily live, but high vibrating foods.
Yeah.
And I have to ask this because so many people follow these hard, fast rules. What are your thoughts on the dirty dozen and the clean 15? Do you tell clients to follow that rule on produce?
I don't. I'm aware of it. I used to always update the document every year and put it on my fridge or put it someplace in my kitchen that I could see it. A lot of it I just kind of know instinctively right now. So like I always know to buy my bell peppers organic. I always know to buy my celery organic. I always buy my zucchinis, my summer squash organic, just because in America that's the most genetically modified vegetable are zucchinis. So I just kind of have an awareness, but it's not a hard fast rule for me because I think there's ebbs and flows with everything. And it all depends where you're shopping.
Mm, hmm. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Now, most people don't understand the difference between regenerative farming
Mhm.
and organic farming. So
Yes.
here's the one thing, and I always because I have a real problem with health washing, and it happens a lot in the grocery stores. And there's a lot of people that just don't even realize that they're being health
Mhm,
washed.
mhm,
So I always say, I'm like, and the people will go, "Oh, this is, we've already talked about eggs, but oh, these eggs are organic and they're vegetable, grain fed. So they must be healthy and I'm going to buy them." And I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. I've seen chickens eat worms. I've seen chickens forage. They eat bugs. This is not indigenous to their diet. Do not get health washed thinking that this is a better egg. Like you said, you want 100% pasture raised eggs, chickens that are foraging and eating whatever. And although they do substitute, my grandmother used to substitute with some feed as well. But there would be chickens running around everywhere. So how do you know? So somebody sees organic farming, they think, "Oh, this must be the best thing." And then regenerative farming. Well, what is and then you research those lettuces that come, and I'm not going to name them, but they are organic lettuce. And
mhm.
I have read that it's not through regenerative means, so the nutrients are not so high in this lettuce because they're not rotating the soil. They're not like they're using the same soil to grow these organic lettuce that they put in a box. And so is that healthy? So explain the differences between regenerative farming, organic farming. Like, how do we even know where to begin, Whitney?
I would love for everyone that's listening to this to watch the movie Common Ground. You can find it online. Depending on what source you go through, you might have to pay $1.99 or $3.99, and it's really worth it's going to a good cause. And it's a series that they're creating. So the first one was Kiss the Ground. The next one was Common Ground, and they're working on the third documentary that will be coming out, I believe, in 2025. And it is teaching everyone literally this verbiage and how to be better consumers and how to be better caretakers of the planet. And the Common Ground movie is specifically focused on regenerative farming and interviewing a variety of farmers in completely different sectors, from growing corn to growing different produce to cattle, and helping you understand what regenerative means versus what the other agriculture is happening and doing around them. So it really helps you understand the verbiage. You can see it visually. So when it comes to organic produce and organic foods, they can still use over 20 different pesticides when they prepare and grow that food. Like we talked about earlier, it's a certification. It's very, very expensive. And you have to maintain that certification. You have to pay those fees every year to maintain that license. So then you can advertise that you're organically grown. But it still means that you're allowed to use these quote unquote organic pesticides. And we all know pesticides are pesticides, herbicides are herbicides, insecticides are insecticides. Miracle Grow is Miracle Grow. A lot of these chemicals that are made to help things grow bigger, faster, greener are really just all the same products with different names on them. So regenerative means they aren't using any of that. They aren't using anything. They are focused on 100% on soil health. And they are constantly testing the soil to rebuild the microbiome, the worms, how rich in the depth of the soil, and then allowing nature take its course. So they're being mindful about what they're growing on the soil to add more nutrients in it. And they're cycling their crops and they're loving their land. And they're finding, you'll see when you watch this film, that they're getting more flavorful fruits and vegetables, that the land is just more beautiful, that everyone's feeling better when they eat the food, and that they're getting more out of the crops. Their return on investment's better. It's actually helping the farmer. They're finally making more money. And that's the most beautiful thing, is if we all lean into spending our money on food whether it's, beef, poultry, you know, nuts, seeds, vegetables, grains, fruits from regenerative farms, it's going to help us all because it's going to help more farmers get on board with doing it. It's going to create more food. We're all going to feel better. Like it's the hamster wheel to get on.
Okay, so everyone who's listening, if you're eating beef, you would want ideally pasture raised, 100%, or no, sorry, beef is different. Beef is 100% grass fed, grass finished from a regenerative farm. So back in the day with my grandfather's farm, they would rotate the cows. So allowing the time for the grasses and the soils and everything to regenerate. So the cows would they would move the pastures for these cows to graze on. So that's regenerative farming for animals
Mhm.
that graze on the land. And then there's regenerative farming for produce, which is different, but regenerative farming can apply to animals as well as produce and anything that grows that
Yeah,
we eat.
it's really amazing, and I loved this film. Like, if you're also in a place where you're just really down and out about the food system, that you think it's doom and gloom, that you think that there's no way out for us, what am I gonna eat? It's all gonna poison me. No, 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 no. This film will reignite your faith in humanity, and, I think we're at the tipping point. I think it's all gonna start to get better from here, but we have to choose to participate. And we don't have to all go out and be a farmer, but we can all just make better choices with what we're fueling our body with. And like how we kind of got the easy job. We just have to start to uh, change our routine a little bit, which is a little bit uncomfortable, and find some different places to buy our ingredients, see how that makes us feel. And I think we all will do our part to put things in motion to restore our food system.
Yeah. Have you read the book The Sacred Cow?
Oh,
No? So take a look at that because, there's so much misinformation out there about, oh, if a cow farts too much, it's destroying our environment. Like, honestly, like some of this stuff people really you need to critically analyze all the information that comes to you from mass media sources. And if there's anything that I would say as a takeaway, not everything old is new. However, because we can't necessarily go backwards in time, but if you look historically at the way that our food was grown, the way that our animals were reared, and how we lived off the land, the closer we can get to that, I think the better off we will all be as it relates to our sources of nourishment.
yeah. They say it's the age of Aquarius, but it's also the age of discernment.
Yeah.
So this is the time that we have to be more discerning. We have to practice and build that muscle within us to be able to hear all the options and then understand what is truth and what is myth, or what is truth and what is manipulation.
Yes. You know what? I think that's so true. I think we kind of lost that muscle for a while there during the pandemic. And, a lot of people who were trying to say, but wait a minute, but wait a minute. We were shut down and a lot of people weren't allowed to speak about certain things. So I like that you said that the age of discernment. So not everything is for everyone, but I think we all need to just kind of say, let me see if this resonates with me, how this vibrates, like you've said, in my hands, in my body. How does this feel for me?
And it's going to change. So just get comfortable. It might work today, it might not work a year from now. And what you're testing that's not your cup of tea right now, you might want to revisit it in a year or two. It might sink at a different time. We all wake up in our own divine timing. And But I encourage you to just start upgrading the foods that you eat because everything in your life will start to evolve in a better way when you do.
It's inside out work, right, Whitney?
I think so. Yeah. And the food helps. The food's the foundation.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So, this has been a great conversation. Let us know where we can find more about you.
Yeah, so I'd love for you guys to connect with me on Instagram. I love being able to DM with you and be able to ask questions and have you guys answer them. So you can find me on Instagram at Whitney Aronoff, and you can also find my brand Starseed Kitchen on Instagram. You can visit my website, starseedkitchen.com, and I like to share as many of my recipes that I use as a personal chef and for myself there because I want to help you guys do what I do for myself. Because, like we talked about, the healthiest meal you can eat is the one that you eat at home. So, I put my recipes there. So, you are encouraged and supported in creating some really healthy seasonal meals yourself. And then you can also tune in to conversations like this on my podcast, which is called the High Vibration Living Podcast. And then lastly, if you want to try the spice blends that I have been using on myself for over 20 years, and I also prepare a lot of my clients' food with, when you visit starseedkitchen.com, you can find my organic spice blends there.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Whitney. I'm so happy to have met you.
Me too. Thank you.
Okay, I hit stop there.